Right, welcome to the first episode of my new series, Chinese Lock Talk. So we'll be talking about a few of the more unusual Chinese locks that I come across, and probably some of the mundane as well as I run out of the more unusual stuff to talk about. So what better off way to start it off than with a nice gutting. So I haven't gutted this lock before yet, so this will be going into uncharted territories right here. So this is a stop lock from China, of course. And it's a mortise cylinder, first off, which is very unusual because usually locks in China either come in a Euro cylinder format, such as this lock. This is a Euro cylinder format. It kind of looks like a big keyhole shape, for those of you who don't know what Euro cylinders are, or a rim cylinder format. So mortise cylinders are very uncommon in China. So what's special about this lock is the keys, first of all. This is where we can tell that it's very different than other locks anywhere. So when I have a look at it, notice that it's not just straight cuts. The cuts are angled, like a Medico from the United States. So let's take a look at that. This is, let's move this out of the way. This is a Medico M3, but that doesn't matter. The core of a Medico is still the same, no matter what series it is. And the key cuts are also at angles. That one's straight, this one is angled that way, that one is angled that way. This one is straight, a straight cut, and that one is angled that way. So this key has resemblances of a Medico, but it also resembles another lock. So instead of just having one row of angles like a Medico, it's got two of them. So what this is similar to is the bilock, which has two rows of pins, and the keyhole, or the keyway, looks like that. Now I can actually pull the core out of this lock. So it has two sidebars, which bind against the plug, and two rows of pin. So what I suspect is that inside of the stop lock it will have probably the same type of mechanism, but perhaps a hybrid with the Medico and the bilock. So what I expect to see is Medico type pins on both of these, but two rows of them and two sidebars instead of just one. So enough about this. Let's go ahead and take it apart. So let me get a screwdriver. And first, let's unscrew this tail piece off the back of it. All right. I have not taken this apart yet before, so I don't quite know what to expect. Stuff could go flying everywhere. It's a very tight little tail piece. There we go. All right, let's put those aside. Now then, let's take the key that I've separated helpfully, and let's just put it in there to see, hold the stuff in place. And I guess, since it should be like the bilock, there should be no driver pins of any kind. So this housing is just a solid piece of brass with a bit milled out of it. There's no pins and stuff in there. And as I pull it out, there's this plate on top. I'm going to put pressure on that just in case. And, oh. Hold on. So this is the housing. As I suspected, there is no driver pins, but there's only one sidebar slot. I don't know if the lighting will do it. Let me fix it for a second. So if you can see right there clearly, I'm not sure if you can see it clearly, but there's only one slot for the sidebar. Unlike a bilock, which has two, so maybe they are tricking us a little bit over here. So there are two rows of pins, but only one sidebar. That's a bit of a bummer right there. I guess we were fooled. So yeah, so let's go ahead and take a look at the bottom. So this top piece right here is actually not crimped on like the Medico cam locks are, or the bi-locks for that matter. And the sidebar is also not crimped on, so we will take a look at that. So first, let's take off the key, which we can do. And indeed, these are quite something to look at. They are angled indeed. So they're not lying about the pins needing to be angled, but perhaps only one side is used. The other side is just there for decoration. That's quite a disappointment. All right, so let's take out the sidebar and have a look at that. So the pins don't fly all over the place, which is nice. As on the bottom, all right. So, okay. So let's keep the top on. This doesn't want to stay on. All right, so let's keep the top on and remove the sidebar. Give it a good. So there's the front of it. There's the plug. You see the kind of the profile it's got there. Let's pull out the sidebar. Hold on a second. What the heck? So it looks like it does utilize that row of 4 pins. Wow, quite ingenious actually. So hold on, let me focus this a little bit. So instead of just having 2 sidebars like the bi-lock, they just have one sidebar with a short leg for the pins closest to the sidebar and long legs for the pins farthest from the sidebar. So they weren't fooling us after all. Seems a bit like a lot of effort to do this. Wow, it's very interesting. So that is the sidebar, and you'll notice the sidebar springs are actually not really, they're actually just on 2 of these legs right here. So they're just on, so they basically just slid them onto these 2 legs that go to the pins farthest from the sidebar. All right, so that is very unique. I've never seen that before. I think this lock is one of a kind. Let's take a close-up look at the pinholes. We can see the pins right there. So there's the ones going to the far pins. These, so these 5 right here, where you can see the little bits of brass sticking out right there. Those are to the closer pins. These 5 pins over here. Hold on. I need to keep this from springing all over the place, as the cap is not permanently crimped on there as I would like it to be. So these 5 correspond with these 5 shortened bars on the sidebar right here. These 5 bars, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right there, go to these pins, and the 4 long ones go to these pins. Okay, so enough with the sidebar. Let's take a look at the pins, which is what I'm really curious about, is how they managed to do this whole thing, the angled. So what I suspect is that the pins will look very similar in operation to a Medico. So I'm not going to take the whole thing apart because it's going to be a pain to put back together. So I'm going to dump one of the pins out. There we go. Set this aside. And all right. So this is what we have. It is very similar to a Medico.